Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. My name is Paul. I'm your host, and I know you see, I can't even say that properly straight in one go. Let me start again, and I'm not going to edit it because you know me by now. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Happy Head podcast. My name is Paul, and I am your host. Wow. Today I'm with Danny Matthews. Good afternoon, Danny. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm really well, thank you. I'm very well. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me on.
And we were just before we went live, we were talking about things, talking about words, and I mentioned that one word I hate is authentic because most people that use that word are the most inauthentic people possible. But as you've seen from this podcast, I muffle and stumble and mumble my words all the time, and that's what you get, and that's who I am. So, Danny, how are you doing? How's life?
Good. I'm my 2-year-old starts play school tomorrow, so that's going to be an event in itself. So it's funny. A lot of things have changed over the last year in the world, but also in my personal life. So it's yeah, things are always changing, but things are going really well, business and personal. I can't complain.
So why is a 2-year-old going to play school going to be a major event? Does he or she want to go or not want to go? Are you going to be full of, oh, I'm my child in the care of someone else. How will I cope?
Is bittersweet. Um, I think I don't know whether he wants to go or not. I think is probably the main thing. But yeah, because of the pandemic and everything, he hasn't had the interaction I think he needed. And then yeah, we're looking. I'm looking forward to it because it's great for him. I think it'll be great for him to interact with other kids. It's funny. It's like take everything else away. The one thing I think he'll benefit from is just watching another kid do something and deciding for himself whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. You know, that's really part of our very early learning, and he hasn't had that. So I'm excited for him to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting times. I remember when my three kids were really, really young, me and my ex were both working full time because I work shifts. So we had a childminder, and two of them loved it. They would, they couldn't wait to get out of the car quick enough to go and bang on the childminder's door and disappear for the day. The middle one, poor bugger, he suffered really badly with separation anxiety. And with me, when I was dropping him off, it was easy because I knew that because the childminder told me 2 minutes after I'd gone, he'd be happy as Larry and he'd just get on with his day. But for my ex, it was major trauma because she'd get upset, he'd get upset. Half an hour later, he's still not in the childminders. And I just said to her, look, just grab him, hand him over to the childminder, give him a kiss on two cheeks and walk away. But she would never do that. And so, of course, it kind of like excarabated the situation. And she'd be like, oh my God, I've left my poor son. And she'd have a really crappy day because she'd feel guilty. And I'm saying, don't, it's just something he has to go through because we know that once you've walked away, he's fine. And he's interacting with the kids, he's having a ball. And this
I
is
think
what
it's
they do. Kids
probably
have a ball, you know.
I think it's probably one of the biggest challenges of parenting that we don't anticipate really. Uh, is that getting to that stage where you've been together for 2 years and now you're going to be away for a number of hours per day. We just haven't had that. We haven't had it because of lockdown and because of the pandemic. We've been together every single day for the last 2 years, and we don't have family that live near us either. So it's not even like we can call nanny to come and look after him. It's been constant in our bubble for that whole time. So to be out of that is a real plays with you a bit.
Yeah, that must be difficult because when my kids were young, there was no such thing as a pandemic. It was unheard of, unexpected even. But the thing for me was it was a relief, in all honesty, because I was working shifts. And so when I was taking him, it was like I'd just come off a night shift, I'd not been to bed. So it's like 7:30 in the morning. So I just want to hand the kid over so I can go back to bed and get some sleep. It was that kind of scenario. And yeah, so for me it wasn't an issue. I just take him. Take him. I need to go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, because pets, dogs, people have been manic over the past year and a half buying dogs. There's been a huge there's been a huge rise in sales of puppies and also a huge rise in thefts because people are obviously selling the dogs on. But I think really, really sadly, what's going to happen is come the back end of this year, beginning of next year, so many of these puppies that have been bought over the past 18 months are going to be handed into rescue centres because people are going to go back to work full time. Puppies going to get bored. Puppies going to start wrecking the house. And people are going to go, I can't cope, I can't cope, I can't cope. And so there's going to be an inundated and massive like tsunami wave of pets being handed over to rescue centres. Such a shame thing.
Yeah, real shame. So yeah, when situations change so much in that short period of time, I don't think we realise the longer term effects that it has.
Yeah,
Not just on people, but on pets as well, and animals and all kinds of stuff.
well, there used to be an advert which said pets are for life, just not only for Christmas, and it's
Yeah,
the same kind of thing, pets are for life, not just for lockdown.
yeah. Was that an old Battersea Dogs Home advert or something?
Yeah,
Something
RSP, I think it was RSPA,
yeah, yeah,
RSPCA, it was one of those big things that they pushed because, again, not so much these days, but when I was a kid, people would get their kids pets for Christmas as a Christmas gift because there used to be pet shops. When I was a kid, there used to be pet shops where you could actually go and buy guinea pigs and rabbits and cats and dogs and God knows what else. And then, they'd sell you them like a commodity. I'll
yeah.
take 2 rabbits, a cockatoo, and I'll have a couple of the hams in the background, please. Okay, which I can wrap, or you bring your own bag, sir.
Yeah, they used to have used to have these pet shops, like they'd have all the fluffy stuff up front, and then a dark room at the back with the reptiles and the frogs and what have you.
Oh,
Yeah,
God. I used to live in Maidstone in Kent, and there was an exotic pet store. And on the top floor, they had this one room, which I felt really sorry for. It had some kind of boa constrictor or python in there. This thing was monstrous. It must have been 15 foot long, yeah, and sort of like a bit thicker than my thighs. But the
yeah.
thing was in a pool which was just big enough to fit it.
God.
And the problem was, it had no room to move. It couldn't. There was no freedom for this thing. And even though I know they're not kind of have the brains to think, well, God, I'm really lonely and bored here, and I can't wander about. But I just felt really sorry for it because all that happened was they fed it and it just stayed there. It didn't obviously you don't take snakes for walks. But it didn't have anywhere to go. It didn't have any trees to climb. Didn't have any sort of like pools to laze around in. So horrible.
I can't imagine taking a python for a walk. Yeah.
I'm like, hey Fido, hey Fido. But I tell you what, I'm just so glad that I don't live in the United States because in a lot of states, it is not illegal to have exotic pets. And we're talking like king cobras,
Yeah,
snakes,
jaguars.
bears, jaguars, tigers. It's unbelievable. So you could be living next door to someone who's got like a boa constrictor in a cage and a couple of lions in the back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's scary. But anyway, hang
yeah.
on. How the hell do we get?
They're trading guard dogs for like kangaroos or whatever.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. It's scary stuff and it's just legal. No licenses, no permits. You just need the money to be able to buy one of these things. It's unbelievable. Your next door neighbor, you're lying there, you're minding your own business. A bloody king cobra comes into your living room. Then again, it's like in Florida because people are expanding into the Everglades. People have pools in their backyards, and they can't just dive into the pool when they're feeling really hot. They have to check, make sure there's a bloody alligator at the bottom of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
watching one of these lifestyle programs from the States. It was like a croc rescue or something they were called. And that was their job. There was like this team of people, and all day long they would go around Florida taking bloody humongous alligators out of people's pools.
Wow.
One episode, they got a call from this lady. She said, I can't go into my garden. She said, why? There's this massive alligator. And they went in and they showed this thing. The pool must have been about 15 foot long. The alligator was outside the pool, laying alongside the fence. It was longer than the bloody pool.
Wow. That is
And
insane.
they grabbed this thing and put it in the back of the van and took it out into the middle of the Everglades and released it.
Just like
Jeez,
that. Yeah. Just like that. Just
unbelievable.
grab an alligator and chuck it in the van.
Well, the thing is, thankfully, alligators aren't as aggressive as crocs, so they're
Yeah.
able to kind of like throw a cloth over its eyes, which kind of confused it, and then they wrapped kind of like masking tape around the mouth, and then it was a case of like 6 or 7 blokes trying to hike this thing into the back of a truck.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
God, that's a job, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. What do you do for a living? Well, I hike alligators out of people's pools.
an alligator transporter or
You know,
whatever.
it's a really good job, but there are potential
Yeah,
risks.
yeah, there's, yeah.
For those that are not watching, I just lift up my hand and pretend I'd lost three fingers. Anyway, so how did we get onto this topic? I got no
I
idea.
had no idea.
It's your fault. You talked about your 2-year-old having a moments event tomorrow. That was
Oh
it.
yeah, comparable. Yeah,
They're very,
definitely.
very comparable. You're 15-foot alligators and a 2-year-old. Why the hell not? So, anyway, listen. You do branding and what else do you do?
Fine. Yeah,
Who?
branding and design.
That's it, branding and design. But you started off doing design, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah,
You're an artist.
I always wanted to be a designer as a kid. I did end up in financial services for a decade, but as a whole other story. Um,
Hang on, no, stop. You got to stop. So you wanted to be a designer as a kid, and you
yeah,
spent 10 years selling insurance or whatever.
insurance and mortgages. Yeah, I ran a broker. So yeah, when I was a kid, I had this dream of I was. You probably see behind me actually. This image. How do I point it that way? This image is a sign of my childhood. I'm pointing at an image for those on audio. A frame on my wall of a character called Totoro, and it's from a film called My Neighbor Totoro, made by a Japanese producer called Hayao Miyazaki. And he started a film studio called Studio Ghibli, and it basically became my childhood. Japanese culture and animation, and these animated cartoon films, all kinds of stuff. And it really, I loved it. It sparked my creative brain, and I used to draw a lot. And I just wanted to leave school, move to Japan, and design some kind of games or cartoons. And we don't, we know the education system now. It's much better now than it used to be. But when I was at school, there was no creative path. It was, even though there was, like, of course there were jobs as designers, but that was never the feeling you got from the careers advisor. It was like design as a backup, a little bit like singers and actors and other creative jobs. Um, it's a great dream to have, but if you're going to live in the real world, it has to be a backup. You have to go and get a real job and do it on the side. So there was no real support or encouragement. So I never really pursued it, apart from for personal reasons. So, and then I ended up falling into a job and then another job and another job, as you do, And yeah, it took me a little while to get back to what I really wanted to do. And luckily, I'm here now. But it wasn't an easy journey.
Yeah, I get that because art in schools is there as part of the curriculum. But if you aspire to do something artistic or creative, you kind of knock back because, well, when I was a kid, there were lots of jobs in banking, there were lots of jobs in factories, there were lots of jobs. Whereas now that kind of world has shrunk, and ironically, it's kind of the converse has happened. There's lots of jobs in design and creativity. In fact, that's kind of the way I see it is the way forward for a lot of people, is in that kind of design slash creative slash artistic kind of world. It's a complete, almost a 360, really.
Yeah, and it's a big conversation point at the moment in the industry because more designers are becoming C-level board members, and I think it's this realization from a corporate perspective, especially, it's this realization that design used to be this utility. It used to be this thing that you just use to create something from your own ideas. And now it's become much more valuable. It was never valued really, design, 10, 20, 30 years ago, to the point where you could attach a return on investment to it. But now you can. We have all this technology, we have all this technology that enables us to figure out buyer behaviors and watch people how they click on things on websites and how they buy. We have so much data and so much experience with how we behave online and in shops now. We can use design to our advantage, which is why now you see a lot of user experience design and customer experience design that is around how we interact with things like apps and websites and how we behave. So they can use it to their advantage now and they can attach that value price point to it. So I think that's why a lot of businesses are starting to put creative at the forefront because it's been proven to make a real difference to the bottom line of the business.
I also think it's a lot to do with the way the world is. That the world is so noisy from a business perspective now that to stand out in the world, yes, the text that goes along with an ad or on a website page or on a social media post is very important, but you've got to get the eyeballs, to use a phrase, onto that piece of text. And the way you do that is by some kind of design.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see it all the time, and whether we notice it or not, the world is driven by creative. It's driven by design. Everything we do, everything we smell, everything we see or touch has all been created by people who sat around a table and said, "What do we need to get as a result from this?" And then it's reverse engineered to the people that you need attention from. And the only way you get the attention is by grabbing them visually. Yes, there is an argument you can do that with sound and music and all the rest of it, but for the most part, it is designed that way to get your attention.
And thinking about that, probably since day one, design and creativity and art have been a huge kind of like hidden in plain sight aspect to our lives. Think about, cathedrals and how beautiful they were and the kind of stone and design involved, Romans and their straight roads and their healing baths, and art that goes on walls, and there's kind of design and art in everything. And yet for a lot of us, we just don't recognize, because as you said earlier, it just wasn't seen as having any value, although it's all around us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've never shared, I've never thought of this example before, but I just thought, what's the simplest example I can give? And I just thought about curbs on the side of the road. People had to sit in a room and say, we have a problem. Every time a car goes up a curb, it reduces the lifespan of the tyre or the wheel. How can we reduce that? Well, how about in front of driveways, we have a curb that's slanted like a ramp, and then that won't happen. That used to be like, that is a problem that really needs solving, that you could probably eventually attach a value to monetarily. So they designed them that way. It wasn't just by chance they went, why don't we just put a ramp there? Someone had to have hit it first to say, this is going to ruin my wheels. And then they change it and they design it in a different way. So it's really about, the world is created through iterative change, however you want to interpret that. But for the most part, it's through design. And it's through how we solve problems.
I just thought of another one: eating a hot, hard-boiled egg. You can't hold a hot, hard-boiled egg in your hand unless you've got an oven glove on. So somebody had to think about, well, okay, we've got this problem. We love hard-boiled eggs. We love being able to like smack the top of the spoon and scoop it out, but how the hell do we hold it? So somebody sat down and came up with a design for an egg holder.
Egg cups, yeah.
Yeah, egg cups. A very simple meal, a boiled egg. But you can eat. Obviously, you can eat a cold hard-boiled egg because you can smash it and then peel all the shell off. But a lot of people, like, I mean, I can remember that as a kid, sitting down for breakfast and having a hard-boiled egg where you got the little spoon, scrape the top off, and dunked your soldiers. Had bread soldiers. Yeah. You dip the bread in.
Thinking about that, that's probably, we have the design of things and then we have the branding of things. So the design is the solving of the problem. The branding is just how you communicate that to the people that have the problem. So basically, you have the problem of the hard-boiled egg and you solve it with the egg cup. And then you have the branding of it, which someone said, if we call it egg and soldiers, people will eat it more and they'll buy the egg cups because they want to do it. So that's a really, we've just come up with this off the top of our head, obviously, but in essence, that is design and branding. That is solving a problem and then making sure that you can communicate it to the people that you're solving a problem for.
Yeah, and making people aware that they'd have a problem, because
yes, exactly,
before somebody came up with that idea, it wasn't a problem, was it? You just had a hard-boiled egg and you banged it against the table and peeled the skin off, and that's it.
Yeah.
But now we've created a problem, so people had to buy the bread to make the eggy soldiers, and had to buy the egg cups. Yeah, brilliant. But listen, we were talking, and you wanted to get into design. You ended up doing spending a decade in finance and such like. What was the turning point that got you out of that and into the thing that you loved, which was, design and everything that goes with it?
Yeah, so that's this is probably a key part of the journey, and I mean it's a long story, but to keep it short, I managed to get this contract, or I started an insurance broker, and we expanded with an old colleague. We expanded into mortgages, which was great. And immediately when I entered mortgages, I found a really big problem, and that was that we were being told that in order to sign up a mortgage client or do business, you had to go and visit them face to face as a regulatory thing. And then once you'd seen them, you'd take all their information and spend a decent hour bringing all this information in, to then go back to the office to do the research to recommend a mortgage. And this whole process was about 15 hours long. And you wouldn't even know at this stage whether you were going to get paid or whether it would be a good recommendation or advice for them. So I did it a number of times and thought, this is ridiculous. Why are we doing all of this when we have so much technology now? And even, this was 5 years ago, but I'm convinced that we could have done it 10, 15 years ago. It's not difficult technology. So I was convinced that we had all this technology, that I could go away and build something to solve this problem of having to go backwards and forwards to a client all the time. And I built this proof of concept called Morgie. And essentially it was a broker's version of a mortgage application that clients could fill out online, and they could sign documents digitally that verified their identity with the Passport Office or DVLA, and time, date, and location stamped it. So it was all very secure. And if I could do that, I would reduce that process from 15 hours to an hour. And I would know very quickly whether it was worth pursuing, not just as a business opportunity, but to give the right advice to the client. So yeah, I did that as a proof of concept. I got a lot of interest in it from the mortgage industry. And one company said, can you come and build it for us? Because we currently take 100 applications a month, and we're about to bid for a contract where that could be taken to 500 a day, and we physically couldn't handle it. We couldn't even recruit quick enough to handle it. So it wasn't even a people problem either. So what it would enable someone to do was it would enable a small amount of people in a mortgage broker to make a decision whether that was good quality business or not. And that's what it enabled them to do. And they ended up winning a humongous contract. But in the process, I worked so hard to make this happen. It was 15 months of 20-hour day, like literally 2-3 hours sleep, traveling all the time. It was really full on. Great result in the end, but at the detriment to my health. And I ended up on the floor in London, literally lost the feeling from my waist down, just because my body couldn't take it anymore. I was done. And at that point, I kind of realised I can't do this anymore, and decided to wallow in self-pity for a bit until I realised maybe I could do this thing that I wanted to do all along. And it was my wife, actually, who kind of encouraged it and said, didn't you want to be a graphic designer all them years ago? And I thought, I've got nothing to lose now. I might as well give it a go. And that's when I entered the world of branding and design, and that's where I am now.
How did you get started? I mean, it's okay to say, yeah, I'd really love to do that. But what
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, I'd really love to be a graphic designer, but there's all these people out there doing it now. How did you kind of edge your way into that business?
So the first thing I did was thought, what do I have to offer and how do I get into this world? And I immediately thought, I understand business, but if I'm going to go set up on my own as a freelancer or as a design studio or whatever, I really need to be in that business for a certain period of time. At that point, I thought to myself, if I can spend 5 years in an agency, I'd get some really good experience. This would mean turning down the big 6-figure offer that I was given on the project to a minimum wage design job in an agency or a print house, which I ended up doing. So there was a little bit before this, actually, where I thought, how can I kind of brush up on my skills? And I signed up to something called the 30-day logo challenge. And this challenge is something that anyone can do online. If you search for it, you'll find it. I think it's called 30daylogos.com or something. And I decided that I was going to spend an hour a day designing a logo from a made up brief, because they send you an email a day. I'd take the logo and I'd spend an hour designing it. And I decided to record my screen so I could get a better idea of the process and that kind of thing. And then I'd shorten the video to 30 seconds, and I decided to just post it online because it'd be interesting for people to see the process, and I thought it'd be quite a cool thing for accountability. What that did was got people really interested in my transition from financial services to design. And a lot of people asked me to do some work for them, whether it was free, whether it was a small amount of work. And within about 2 weeks, I think I had about 15 clients asking me for work.
Wow.
And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I could really do this. But it also really scared me. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to go and get experience. And that's when I went and tried to find a job. Started working for a print company, and within a year, actually, realistically, within 2 months, I thought this is going to be really short-lived. I could feel myself already outgrowing this role. And what I didn't realize, I think, at that stage is that I didn't realize, I thought me going into the creative business would be different to me just running a mortgage and insurance broker business. But actually, it's the same thing. And at that point, I realized design is my skill, but it is not what makes me a valuable person to work with. And it triggered something in my brain, and I thought, I can do this. This is no different to what I was doing, with the exception that all I'm doing is selling creative skill, not financial outcome. And that's when after I stayed there for a year in the job and said, I think it's time for me to go. I've outgrown this job. And set up Danny & Co. So I set up the studio. Yeah, and really, but I think the reason that I'm in branding, or I say I'm in branding now, is because I realized that my previous business experience of sales and marketing and operations and dealing with clients and going through those process, I all of a sudden I realized that this is what everyone does. This is how you run a business. And if I can do this in financial services, I can do it in the creative world. And all I'm doing is solving problems, just in a different way. And ever since then, I've been the happiest human being alive.
It's interesting you say that, Danny, because one of the biggest mistake that a lot of people make when they go into business for the first time, either as a coach, as a PT, as a therapist, or anything really, is they think they're going to spend 99.9% of their time doing the thing that they want to do, where in fact it's the complete opposite. You spend at least 80% of your time doing the business stuff. Like me, I'm a coach and a therapist. I spend 80% plus of my time marketing, because like we discussed already, it's a noisy world out there, and I have to let people know I exist and what I do and how I do it, so they can make an informed decision of whether they want to work with me or not. And I think this is why so many people get really turned on by, oh, I'm going to become a counselor, I'm going to become a therapist. And then within a week of being in business, they go, that's not what I thought it was. And this is why so many businesses fold within the first year.
70% of my team work on internal content production for marketing. So I completely get that. There is most of what we do is basically trying to get the business. And as you know, most of us go, get the business, do the work, and then forget about marketing. And then by the time we finish doing the work, we go, oh God, I need to go get more business. And then you market again when you're not doing the work. And it's a really tough cycle to get out of. So I completely get that.
Do you want to say that again? 70% of your team doing internal marketing for your business.
Yeah, so I have a team of 9. 6 of those are video editors, graphic designers, writers, and social managers. So that's all they do. they literally work on Danny & Co. content.
So listen, folks, if you're thinking about going into business, doing whatever it is, whether it's selling flower pots, painting you've created, for photographs you've made, or therapy or anything, you need to be spending at least 70 to 80% of your time marketing, letting know you exist in the world. And if you don't want to do that, then seriously stay in your job, because Without that, people aren't going to find you. It's critical.
Yeah, we're quite smart about the way that we do content, and a lot of it is repurposing. Um, but it was really important for me as soon as I could see that the majority of work was coming in from me posting on social media, as ridiculous as it sounds to some people. That's I knew that I had to double down on it a lot, because uh, when you work out the numbers and you work out the cost of doing it, it's so tiny
Mm.
compared to the upside. And to be honest, ever since I hired, almost within 3 days, I thought to myself, I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I had hired people before I could afford it, even to that point, which is scary, but I wish I did. It's been a huge change in the business.
It's interesting you say that, 'cause I can't remember who said this, but oh yeah, it's Helen Pritchard. You know Helen, I'm sure you do,
Yeah,
from LinkedIn. Yeah, she said that people kind of don't put themselves out in social media because they're frightened of it. And she says, look, every day people are, picking dead bodies up off the motorway, and burying people and performing life saving, life threatening surgery. All you've got to do is post a few times and push a button. Get some scale in this. And yet people are saying, oh, I'm so frightened, I can't do this, I could never go live, and all the rest of it. But it just proves you have to. You have to do it. And it's seriously, it's no big deal. Yeah, it's
yeah,
time consuming, but get it done.
yeah. There's a lot of fear around kind of doing video and being on camera and those kinds of things. When you put it into perspective, you have to post on Facebook,
Mm.
LinkedIn, or Instagram, whatever your platform is, a few times a day. And you have to make sure that the message reaches the people that you want to solve problems for. And it can't get more simple than that. And once you do it and you figure out the numbers, all you have to do is find a way to do it a little bit more. And that's what I did. I realized that I had this branding program, and if I posted 1 to 3 times a day on Facebook and LinkedIn, I can get 1 to 5 people in the program. If I increased that to 25 pieces of content a day, I knew I could get 15 people in the program. That's it. End of. They're the numbers. Job done.
So
You just have to
listen,
find a way to do it.
yeah, you just got to get your finger out, pull your finger out, and get on with it. From go away, you little bugger. Go on, clear off. What's the biggest mistakes, or the biggest mistake you see people make, especially small businesses, people with tiny budgets? What's the biggest mistake you see people either making, or what's the one thing they're not doing that they should be doing more of, myself included?
Yeah, it's design procrastination, meaning I need to refresh my logo in order to be better at business, or in order to get more clients. So here's 90% of the conversations that happen with me in my inbox. Hey, Danny, how much is a logo? Danny responds, what's the problem? They respond, what do you mean? What I mean is, don't redesign your logo unless you've got a problem to solve, because I promise you it will be the biggest waste of your money you will possibly do. So we've got into this process of thinking we need the website, we need the logo, we need the thing, we need the social media templates, we need the design stuff. Yes, it's important, but the one thing that I try to make sure I'm always reminding myself is the answer to every question is it depends, and everything in context. So some people who say, I'm starting a business, I've got no money to invest in it, and I just need to get started. Don't bother with a logo, don't bother with a Facebook page, don't worry about a website, go and find clients. Even as a design studio, I never had a website for a year. I've only just kind of done a website, and that's me saying kind of, because we kind of threw it together because we needed, because we wanted a presence, but we just didn't do a lot of that for a long time. So you have to remember, the biggest mistake I see people make in branding is that they focus too much on the design. And even though that's a crazy thing for me to say as a design studio, if you're just looking to get started as a small business, get started. That means money in the bank, not logo business card or whatever.
Oh man, no, I completely agree with that because you see so many people in some of the groups that I'm in. They go, oh, I'm just launching my coaching business. I'm about to spend £5 million on a business card and some flyers and a website, and it's all going to be branded, Paul Wilson Coaching. And I'm thinking, why? Now, I've had a website for about 2 or 3 years, and I can't remember when I last posted to it because most of my people come to me from either LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. I don't think I've had one person come to me from my website. Yes, when people say, "Where's your testimonials?" I go, happyhead.co.uk/testimonials. They're all there. So I park them there, but that's it. It doesn't do anything for me. Yes, if I spent a load of money, I could probably get it SEO to hell and back and
Yeah,
maybe getting a few clients from there. But no, most of my people come to me from social media. And so
yeah. I think
I
my
don't have business cards. I don't have any flyers. I
mhm.
did that. I did business cards and I went networking. I gave all my business cards away. If I had any business from it, I went and dished out loads of flyers, same thing. I'm guessing they work in for some people in some respects, but for me and my business, it's all Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
I mean, if you're like I work with a lot of funded startups that are going through accelerator programs and stuff. And I can tell you, it is 100% guaranteed if you have the money to invest and you do it properly, you will do better than the people that don't do it. 100%. But if you haven't got the resource, you've got no choice. So instead, go the other way. So I guess it's very black and white. If you've got the resource, do it properly. If you haven't, don't do it till you can.
Mm.
And there's loads of stuff you can use out there to fill the gap, like Canva and these tools that you can get. I would prefer you go to Canva and create something yourself than pay someone in a third world country on Fiverr, because at least you get the satisfaction of creating something yourself and having your thoughts and feelings and ideas into that thing you've done yourself, rather than just offshoring it for the sake of a few quid. So yeah, I would rather you be involved in the process and do it yourself than to outsource it for pennies.
And one of the biggest issues with trying to outsource it is you could spend more time trying to explain what you want and how you want than if you actually sat down with Canva and messed around for a couple of hours. You get it done far quicker. And
You
yet,
learn,
okay, you spent the time, but
yeah, you learn so much by doing it yourself as well. I think it's highly underrated going to do your own stuff for a bit, because you really start to figure out what you do like, what you don't like. I don't like these colors. And actually, if you wanted to learn, if you wanted to extend your learning, give what you've got to a designer and say, how could I improve? And I guarantee they'll tell you the same thing every single time. Make sure there's space around everything you do, give everything breathing room, make sure there's really good contrast so a colorblind person could see it. These small little principles of design anyone can use if you just asked for the help. And a lot of people would help you. They would rather, like people like me, I would rather give you a bit of advice over Facebook Messenger for 5 minutes than spend a day trying to quote for a job you can't afford.
mm.
So, yeah, ask for the help and experience doing it yourself. It's really valuable.
Coming back to your website, maybe you should have the homepage. Don't come and talk to me until you've at least spent 3 hours yourself trying to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, apart from when I very first started, that's what I started doing really. People would come to me like, okay, what are you trying to achieve? Have you tried doing it yourself? And they'd say yes or no. Okay, yeah, how was it for you? Like, how did you find it? What did you discover that you liked and didn't like? That gives me a real insight as well. So yeah, absolutely, it's great if you can afford it and you can throw the resource at doing it right first time. But if you can't, what an amazing experience it is to learn how to communicate your brand effectively yourself.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great learning stuff. So you mentioned earlier, Danny, that you've got a program. What is it?
The brand confidence program is something that I put together. It's essentially, despite the fact that most of your clients are going to see something like your logo or your face first, it should actually be the last thing that you attempt to do, because there's a lot of stuff that comes before it that you need to inform the design. So, for example, number one, you need to know what you actually want from this. A really powerful thing is just knowing what the goal is. That's really simple. what do you want out of the business? And however irrelevant that might seem to designing a logo, I promise you it's relevant. Figuring out what the long-term goals are and all those things, your mission and what you want to achieve every day, your vision of what you want to achieve in the long term, your values as a business owner or as a business, all these things that go into making design decisions are really important. So I created the Brand Confidence Program to help people get those decisions. And really, it was my way of, whenever anyone wanted a logo, like I said before, how much is a logo? I used to do this process with them, like on a one-to-one basis, to try and figure out the information I needed to do a really good design job. And what I realized when the pandemic started is that it just wasn't scalable. So I decided to create the program, the Brand Confidence Advantage, and it basically walks you through that process of gathering all that information. Us designers know of it as brand strategy. Other people wouldn't know what that is, but it's basically the discovery process of finding that information. And it goes through 3 elements of branding. One of them is strategy, which I mentioned is the goals and the vision and values. The second is messaging, which is more about your storytelling, your key phrases and hooks you can use in marketing. And then the third piece is behaviors, which is really like a walk the talk kind of thing. It's figuring out the journey people go through of buying from you and how you can optimize that to your advantage as much as you can. So that's what the program does. And that's been the biggest focus of the business probably for the last year, just short of a year, about 9 months.
And how long does it take to actually go through that program? Or is it just like a do it as you've got time kind of thing?
No, it's a set program, so we work together through it. It's essentially a one-to-many group program, but I've built it to feel one-to-one. So if you do need one-to-one support, you can book in calls for a Friday. So usually the way it works is people watch the videos, do the tasks on a self-serve basis on the Monday. We have a group call on a Wednesday, and then we have a one-to-one call on a Friday. And we guide through that process for 8 weeks. And then you get a buffer of 2 weeks at the end, so it's 10 weeks in total, where we put together a communications document that basically you can give to anyone who you work with to understand your brand and where you're going. So actually, you don't even need to use us for design and branding by the end of it. You can go to anyone, but it gives you what you need to transfer that elsewhere.
That sounds like a really kind of cool introduction into learning about branding and design and marketing, how it all kind of all the various different pieces of the jigsaw, how they all fit together.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the easiest way to figure out where you need to start is we've got something as a starting point, I guess, which is a bit of a scorecard where you answer a bunch of yes/no questions and it gives you a score of strategy, messaging, behaviors, and identity. And it's great because by the time you've been through the program, you can take it again and compare it. And it's a brilliant little tool that we have. So it's definitely a great place to start to understand the kind of help that you might need.
Okay, so listen, Danny, any kind of, well, first of all, where can people reach out to you?
Feel free to just reach out by email. It's just hello@dannyand.co. You can find me on social media pretty much anywhere under the actual Danny, because I'm a Danny, not a Daniel. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. Just search Danny and Co. Design Studio anywhere, and you'll find me.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that. Listen, any kind of final thoughts, final words for somebody who maybe thinks they have got the resources to get some branding and design sorted out, but is not sure what the next step is? What would you suggest?
Figure out the problem. The best designers will solve a problem, not design something that's pretty. So figure out what the problem is first, and then go to a designer and say, I need to solve this problem. If they get confused by that question, they're not the designer for you. So that's probably the best bit of advice I can give.
Okay, and the final, when you say what is the problem, can you give us in a few words, what kind of problems that logo/branding is going to solve for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have kind of I guess you could call it a strap line or a motto or something that we work to at Danny and Co. And that is that your success is dependent on you, your people, and your client's confidence in your brand. So all the problems stem from those three areas. So, for example, as a leader or the person owning the business, I don't know what to do next, or I need to try and reposition to a different audience, or I need to find my target clients, for example. When it comes to people, it's more around talent and culture, so talent retention and culture. And when it comes to clients, it's really about targeting. How do I target my ideal clients? How do I differentiate myself with my competitors? And essentially, I think the one thing everyone wants is how do I stand out? What is my unique competitive advantage? So there are a couple of examples of problems.
The old USP, I think that was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Listen, Danny, thanks for your time today. It's been an interestingly wide-ranging conversation. What from alligators to financial services and to building logos. Really appreciate it, Danny. Thanks.
It's been great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye now.